Hello, everyone, and welcome to Health Mastery for Leaders. I'm so grateful to have you back. And it is my hope, like in my heart, deep heart, that during this time with each special speaker that I bring on for you, that you are hearing something that can help support you around your health journey, your wellness, and even like tips and strategies that you can maybe start to implement right now as we step into the holiday season, depending on what that looks like for you, because as you know, we're all in a different place. And you have seen every single speaker speak about the importance of figuring out what works for you as a unique individual as yourself. So now, our next speaker, I am so grateful to interview today. She is going to be talking about gut health. But before we get into the whole interview process, I want to welcome Dr. Loredana Shapson. Dr. Loredana, welcome to Health Mastery for Leaders.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Loredana before we dig in. She's the founder of Life Mod Solutions, a holistic health practice in Newton, Pennsylvania. She is a pharmacist turned holistic on a mission to get patients off medications. She specializes in bloating, IBS, SIBO, SIFO, and other gut issues, as well as women's vagus nerve, it looks like. So I also want to say her initials as well. So she has a pharmacy degree and she
Mhm,
is also an FNTP.
mhm.
So Dr. Loredana, you're going to talk about bloat, IBS, and gut health solutions, inflammatory foods, and practical recovery tips. So let's just dive right in. How is gut health and inflammation connected?
Good. Well, thank you for that intro. Happy to help. And so it's a huge part of the inflammatory process. And I think that most people don't understand. So in our gut, we have a barrier. And when this barrier is working properly, it's going to bring in the nutrients and keep the trash out. And that's what you excrete as poop. And so when this gut barrier is challenged or compromised, or what we know as leaky gut, now things are getting into the bloodstream that shouldn't be getting in there. So things like undigested food particles, toxins, chemicals, these are things that when they enter into the bloodstream, now we're stimulating the immune system. Now we're seeing some increases in inflammation. And so if you have this chronic leaky gut syndrome, which we'll talk about things that may cause it, is you are going to lead to chronic inflammation. And so this has been a huge driver for a lot of our medical health conditions, because what we see in clinical research now, which is really exciting, is when you fix your gut health, you can fix all sorts of issues in your body, like your depression, your anxiety, your obviously your digestive health, but even things like headaches, autoimmune conditions can get better. We're talking about joint pains disappearing. We've seen improvements in blood work, your cholesterol numbers, your blood sugar,
Yeah.
huge, huge, huge. So you can really touch every facet of your body when you fix and heal your gut. So I think this is a huge place that everybody should start.
Absolutely, and especially with what you're talking about right now during the holiday season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting, like with leaky gut, the question is, how do we even know you have leaky gut? And so I always say, like, put your hand on your neck and check your pulse. If you have a pulse, you probably have leaky gut. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that affect leaky gut, but we're able to measure, say, scientifically. There's a certain endotoxin called LPS. You're familiar with LPS. So this is a protein that comes from bacterial cell walls, and we can actually see how much of this gets into the bloodstream, measuring the amount of LPS, and we're finding that LPS triggers a specific, well, it attaches to specific receptors in the body. Without going into the science, it's toll like 4 receptor. Almost every organ has it. Our skin has those receptors, our gut, our lungs. And what it does is when LPS binds to this receptor, it triggers a whole cascade of inflammatory responses and inflammatory molecules. And so the whole strategy behind today is The goal is to really reduce leaky gut so that you have less LPS coming into the body and less stimulation of those receptors in the body. And then you'll reduce your inflammation over time.
Yeah, so good. And inflammation can come anywhere. So why don't you talk about like the inflammatory process? I mean, I think people kind of understand that sugar and can cause inflammation, but maybe talk about some sources that can cause these diagnoses of the conditions that you're talking about. That would be
Yeah, I
helpful.
mean, so let's connect this to the gut health. So what causes the leaky gut? And that those are the things that I just described that are going to activate, get LPS into the bloodstream and cause those inflammatory molecules to be released. And so the first thing that we want to think about is the processed foods and the sugars. You know, sugars we know, I'm sure this is a big topic, especially going into the holidays. Sugar feeds the wrong type of bacteria and even fungus and mold in our GI tracts. And those inherently, the bad guys that are in there, do not do a great job maintaining our cell wall in our gut. And so that leads to the leaky gut. So we have sugar because of the wrong guys that are going to thrive, and then plus the rise in blood sugar, which also causes inflammation. Processed foods, I mean, we can go on for days about processed foods and the amount of chemicals that are in there. And this goes into pesticides, preservatives. Those are other words for antibiotics. They kill bugs within our GI tract. And so now we're selective. Our GI tract is becoming more selective with more exposure to pesticides and preservatives. And now we're breeding harmful bacteria because they're the ones that survive. And then we're killing off our good guys. So that's furthering this imbalance and increasing the amount of yeast and candida and mold in our body. So processed foods for that reason can also lead to inflammation due to the chemical exposure and an imbalance of the immune system. I'm going to bring it up, but everyone always talks about it, gluten. Gluten has been shown in research to stimulate our gut lining to be more permeable by activating an enzyme called zonulin. And zonulin's job is to open up the lining of the gut so things can come in and out. But gluten does it to an extensive extent. And so when you eat gluten, you're increasing zonulin, and thus you're increasing your leaky gut. And so now things are coming into the bloodstream that shouldn't. And you know, I think the one thing that surprises a lot of my patients when I teach them, gluten's in everything. I mean, you're going to think of your traditional foods like cookies, cakes, pastries, your baked goods, all of that, pasta. But then you have things that are kind of hidden, which people don't realize. Your medications can have gluten. And I'm a pharmacist, so I used to work in a pharmacy, and there's a list, glutenfreedrugs.com. You have to, if you're for celiac people who are sensitive, you need to make sure you're not giving them this. Vitamins, so check your vitamin bottles. You're going to see that it has gluten in it. And things like your cosmetics and your toiletries, and even the envelopes that you lick sealed shut, alcohols. So you got to be really diligent that if it doesn't say gluten-free, you should probably assume that there's gluten in it, in my opinion. Um,
Especially if you're celiac.
yeah, especially. And gluten, whether you're celiac or non-celiac, this gluten is sensitive for everybody. So
Yeah.
just because you say, oh, I don't have celiac disease, it's not bothering me, you can't rely on that. I
No.
would say you have to remove the food entirely for at least a month. And, you know, I always even encourage longer. And then when you bring it back in, you'll really know if it's bothering you or not. So it takes a little bit of a removal, and that N equals one experiment, testing it on yourself, right? Everybody's different. I think another thing that causes inflammation, which most people are not realizing, is actually industrial seed oils. So these are things like your canola, your soy, your corn, grapeseed, safflower. All of these are just highly refined. And if it wasn't for modern machinery and chemicals, we would never extract oils from these food products. And they use harsh chemicals, things like hexane, which is found in the petroleum and gasoline industry. Then the oil smells, it's stinky. And so now they have to deodorize it. And now they deodorize it and they put all these chemicals in it, and it's gray in color. And so now they have to put coloring in it to make it look like an oil. So it's just not natural. And so those just in general, their chemical structures are different. They're made of more of omega-6s. And those omega-6s, if you follow the pathway in our body, will break down into pro-inflammatory molecules. They're called pro-inflammatory prostaglandins. And that's just the way your body metabolizes it. There's no other way around it. Another interesting thing I found out about seed oils, which I'd love to share, we found out that when cell membranes in, say, mitochondria generates our energy. When our mitochondrial cell membranes are made up of more seed oils or omega-6 fats, it actually causes that membrane to become leaky. And in order to generate ATP, you need to have a balance of protons that come in and out. And because now there's an influx of too many protons because of the inadequate cell membrane, now we don't generate ATP. Everybody has chronic fatigue. Everybody's tired. Everybody needs their coffee. Everyone needs their quick fix for sugar. And we're finding out now on a molecular level that the more that you eat these seed oils, they're becoming incorporated into us for structure. And now we're not making enough energy. And metabolically, this is where we have metabolic problems. So the more that you avoid these oils, the more that your cells are going to be made up of healthier fats that will help and support your health as opposed to causing more inflammation. So that is a little fun little side note I wanted to add in about seed oils.
So
So
good.
those are some
ATP
things.
is energy, right? That a lot of
Yeah.
people don't know what that is. We talk about it so easily, just
I,
FYI.
yeah. Yeah. ATP is like our cup of coffee, natural cup of coffee in our body. Yeah. And then, just to bring it up because it's really important during the holidays, alcohol. Alcohol just, there's no nutritional value to alcohol. And so if you're enjoying it intentionally, but it will cause leaky gut syndrome. And so we need to be cautious of that inflammation that causes. And so if you're going to have alcohol, then maybe you're not going to be eating as much sugar. You're going to skip the bread. You're going to skip the pasta. It's about making compromises over the holidays. So super interesting. And then one final thing, because I'm a pharmacist and I want to bring this up. Ibuprofen, your Advils, all of the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, which you find over the counter in your pain aisle at any pharmacy, those have been shown to cause leaky gut syndrome. And so now we're just causing more of the trash coming into the bloodstream that we don't want. So if you're on that stuff, please limit it. Don't use it if you don't have to, and then really find out why you're having pain. And that should be your core driver for health.
100%. And so what does one do if they're experiencing, like, say they're not seeing one of us and they're experiencing some of their symptoms? What can one do to help support their gut during the holidays?
Yeah, so this is a great tip because the reality is life's for living. We're going to be going to social events. The holidays are coming every year. We're going to see our, mother's favorite pie that she makes or grandma's this and oh, this dish. So you're going to want to indulge and you're going to eat. And I totally understand that. So what do you do after the fact? There are certain practical tips that you can apply right away after the event to fix your gut and get things reset. And so one thing that people can really do is what I love is a bone broth fast. And so bone broth is adding in a gut healing food. So there's a bunch of amino acids, there's minerals, there's glucosamine, chondroitin, collagen present in bone broth. And it doesn't even just have to be bone broth. You can even just use regular chicken broth or a turkey broth, any animal where bones are simmered into it, and even some cartilage and some meat and things like that. And that is actually going to provide you nutrients to heal your gut. And so I love a 24-hour bone broth fast, which means at your mealtime, you're not eating solid foods. You're going to drink a cup of bone broth. And so you could do that. You can drink up to 5 or 6 cups of bone broth a day. Sometimes I'll just like to heat up a huge thermos of bone broth and I'll just sip it throughout the day as my beverage. Add a little pinch of sea salt, and that is going to rest your digestive system for 24 hours and still giving you some energy and some nutrients so you're not feeling totally deprived, and it's going to help curb your appetite. So you can essentially drink a cup every 2 to 3 hours and feel satisfied. So I really love the gut reset and just giving your digestive system a break, but then you're also giving it good nutrients for healing. So that's the first thing someone can do. The next thing is you got to avoid all the stuff that you just ate that wasn't good for you. All the things I just mentioned, the gluten, the processed foods. I didn't touch on dairy, but dairy is a good one to remove. I didn't touch on artificial sweeteners, but that's also a good one to remove. Alcohol, and your steroid, any ibuprofen and things like that. And so don't keep, irritating your gut. So that's number 2. The next thing you want to do is add more gut healing foods. And so if you don't want to drink bone broth and do the fast like I recommended, then you can find other ways to incorporate broth into your diet. So if you want to do a full 3-4 days, even a week long of just soups and stews using animal broth, and the key is using animal broth, that is going to give you the nutrients from the broth, and also other things as well. Another advantage of soups and stews is if you're having digestive discomfort, if you're bloating, if you have pain, if you're constipated, raw foods can be hard to digest. So raw salads, roughage, leafy greens, very fibrous vegetables can be challenging if your gut is compromised. So by eating soups and stews, you're actually simmering the vegetables slowly in water and really breaking it down with time. And it's a lot easier to digest cooked vegetables. So by eating soups and stews for 3 days, up to 7 days, or even longer, however long you want to do it, you're going to heal your gut and make it a lot easier to absorb your food. Another thing I love to add, another gut healing food to think about is ghee. And so ghee, because it's mostly fat, most people can tolerate it. Even if you are dairy sensitive, you can try ghee and see if it agrees with you because there's very little protein in there and very little sugar. So most people can tolerate it. But why I love ghee, it's got a specific short chain fatty acid in there called butyrate. And butyrate is a short chain fatty acid that provides energy for the cells in our colon, meaning it can repair, it can rebuild, and it can heal. And so you're also giving yourself another gut healing food. Now, I do want to mention one thing because one thing that I went through when I had my gut problems, because I suffered from bloating, I would drink water and look like I was 9 months pregnant. I was constipated for most of my life. I had skin issues. I had recurrent infections. I've been where probably a lot of your patients have been. And so I'm pain to purpose here. Fermented foods is something that every gut person's going to tell you to eat. When I had my gut problems and when I was at my absolute worst, I could not tolerate a teaspoon of sauerkraut juice. And I was getting so frustrated because I'm like, well, everyone's telling me to eat this and I can't eat it. So how am I supposed to fix my gut? It's a big pain point for a lot of people. And that tells me if you cannot tolerate fermented foods, that your gut imbalance is pretty severe because in fermented foods, you're introducing good bacteria. You could also be introducing some yeasts, but that are good for you. But your body in that moment cannot tolerate any more microbes into the system. And so it ends up causing you more problems. And so if you can tolerate fermented foods, absolutely bring it in. So these are things like your sauerkraut, your kimchi. I really like fermented dairy like kefir or kefir. Everyone calls it a little different. And some yogurts, as long as they're plain, no sugar added to those. So if you can tolerate fermented foods, eat it. If you can't tolerate fermented foods, your gut needs help and you should give me a call because I've been there. But it just takes time to rebalance that. I can keep going here. Is it okay to keep going? Because I got plenty of tips.
Yeah, so I want to swing back because I know this is the holidays, but I know this is confusing for a lot of individuals. Talk to us about like some symptoms of SIBO and the difficulty in treating SIBO, and then connect that with SIFO because a lot of people have not heard of SIFO.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So, when we think about gut symptoms for SIBO, this is my clinical experience too. What I see is a lot of upper GI stuff, more so than lower, but everything's possible. So things like a lot of burping, a lot of belching after meals. And usually this gets worse as the day goes on. Gas, so farting, it could be smelly or non-smelly. There could be constipation or diarrhea, although most SIBO tends to be a little bit more constipated. And that's because the particular bacteria that grow that shouldn't be there, they release something called methane, and that actually slows the motility of the GI tract. And so now things sit for a lot longer, and that further creates a growth of unwanted microbes. You may also have abdominal pain. And then what I would say is a lot of people, when they think of SIBO, they just think of like gut health. But I think that whenever your gut is imbalanced, you could also have things that don't really connect to the gut, things like headaches, things like pain in your joints, things like heart conditions, high blood pressure, things like anemia. So know that if you have other symptoms, it could certainly be tied to your gut health as well. Now, when it comes to SIFO, SIFO is small intestine fungal overgrowth. So this is where mold, yeast, and candida may be overgrowing in your gut. And the really interesting fact about SIFO is if you ever look at the structure of fungus and how it grows, it's almost very web-like. It almost looks like our brain cells. And so they all connect together and they have little, I'll call them like little finger-like projections. They're called hyphae. But they almost, what they do in our gut lining is they kind of burrow in between our gut lining cells and then they pull everything apart. So that imbalance and having too much yeast and candida will cause leaky gut. It's literally growing so much, it's pulling everything apart. So SIFO, how to distinguish whether you have SIFO or SIBO, one of the things that when it comes to your diet. So when you have SIBO, there's a diet called the low FODMAP diet. So there are a bunch of carbohydrates and fibers found in fruits and vegetables that you may be eating every day. People with SIBO will say, oh gosh, I can't eat broccoli. I can't touch dairy. I can't eat this watermelon fruit or an apple. They're very specific with fruits and vegetables that they can't eat. And that cues me even more into the SIBO kind of side of things. Now, SIFO, what I see is most people, when they eat sugar, when they eat carbohydrates, when they drink wine, or when they drink beer, because those contain yeast, they have awful flare-ups and they don't feel well. But I would say that what I find in most of my patients is they have both. Unfortunately, mold, yeast, and candida is very rampant in our society today because of the chronic overuse of antibiotics from our doctors. And then we also receive small amounts of antibiotics in our meat supply. And that's if you're eating traditional conventional meat. Now, if you're eating grass-fed, organic, your farmer, that is a different story. So keeping that in mind. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there's chemicals that act like antibiotics. So those are the pesticides, the preservatives, and then something we didn't touch on was chlorine. So chlorine's in tap water. It's the reason why they put chlorine in our tap water. And that acts like an antibiotic too. So now we're bringing down the bacterial population and the fungus population is overgrowing. And so unfortunately, when I go after my patient's gut health, I'm caring for both of those situations. That's the difference. Did I answer your question about SIBO and SIFO?
Yeah, no, totally. And I think so many people, and then people get frustrated because SIBO is, in my experience, very hard to heal. It's getting people to connect that vagus nerve and stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something I just recently learned too about SIFO and fungus is that we talk about the vagus nerve, and we have found that when you're chronically exposed to the mycotoxins from fungus, it actually causes changes to the vagus nerve. And so you
Ugh.
need to do like limbic retraining. So limbic system retraining, there's a whole program for it so that you can, so these are patients who are extremely sensitive. I can't take a supplement. I get worse. I can't do this. Your limbic system and your vagus nerve needs a whole retraining system to learn how to activate again, to learn how to calm. Once we can calm you, then you can go into healing and then you can start your journey with the other stuff. So very interesting to see that. Now, SIBO is interesting. There is a high reoccurrence rate. So I often will treat my patients with at least 2 months of herbal products and then monitoring. And sometimes we'll need to do another round. It just really depends. And it's while we're bringing in the good bacteria. So that's a key factor is bringing in the good guys with probiotic supplements. And that will help repopulate the gut. So the good guys eventually take over and SIBO won't come back.
So let's I know we could probably talk for days, but let's talk about because I know this is so important. I'm always coaching my patients on like different ways and tips. Like when somebody shows up at a holiday party and they're like, what do I eat? That sort of thing. How do you help individuals kind of maneuver that with gut health?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I personally do is I almost when I get to the event, I'll scan what the options are. And I almost make like ooh, I'm gonna have that, but because I'm eating that pie that I'm looking forward to, I'm skipping the bread over here or this sweet potato dish that's probably covered in maple syrup that Aunt Judy made. Right. And so you can also, if people bring dishes, you can ask them, wow, that looks delicious. What's in it? Let that person tell you what's in the recipe. And you can kind of pre-plan and say, oh, wow, that's a lot of sugar. Or I bet that's something I should really avoid right now. Something I also do, I always bring my own dish, always, because I know that if there's nothing there that I want to eat, I have my own safe dish to go to, and I'm not just awkwardly not eating anything. Right? So bring your own dish, whether that's a meal or even a dessert that you feel comfortable with eating. When it
The
comes to
only
desserts,
with that, the only challenge with that is you can't do that when you're eating out. If you're at
yes,
a function, like you'd be like, hold on, let me just take my purse out. I brought my
yeah, got my own containers, click, click, click. Yeah. I also really love to opt for fruit. If you're just gonna, if you want a sweet treat, fruit is nature's candy. Go for the whole fruit, and enjoy that if it's an option. And then I always tell people too, it's something I always do. I always eat my protein and my fat first. I try and get full on the nutrient dense foods as opposed to jumping right to sugar. And then if you are going to indulge, this is another thing I always teach people, be present with that cake that you're eating or that dessert that you're eating. Really taste it in your mouth, savor it, chew, make that bite come down to mush, so mushy that a baby could swallow it, and really taste every flavor and enjoy it. Because how many times have we been, say, in front of the TV or at our computer and just shoveling food in our mouth? And the next thing you know, we look down and we're going, wow, the whole thing is gone. And you didn't even enjoy it. You didn't even realize you enjoyed it. So be mindful if you are going to enjoy it. And then when you're done, move on, let go. It's done. You chose to eat it. You enjoyed every bite of it. And now, you're going to get back on your clean eating bandwagon. So that's it. So just set your boundaries, stick to it, make your decisions and compromises, and then use the recovery strategies that we talked about earlier.
Totally. So good. So, Dr. Loredana, you actually were so kind to actually create a free gift for the audience. Let's talk a little bit about that free gift, and they can go ahead and download it on the dashboard, and then let people know where they can reach out to you as well.
Yeah, great. So my free gift is my belly bloating fixer elixir tea. It's a mouthful. What it is, it's a tea recipe that you can make in your home tomorrow. It's things that you already have in your kitchen or you can get very easily at any grocery store. And so this tea is going to help your bloating. And actually, as people have begun to use it, they started reporting back, wow, my acid reflux is going away. I'm pooping more. I'm losing a few pounds just by the end of the week. So use this tea because yes, it will help your bloating right now, but it's also going to fix the gut issue because the ingredients that are in there actually promote proper digestion. It increases your gastric motility, right? So it's moving things out a lot quicker. And it's stimulating your liver and your gallbladder to release more enzymes so that you can break down your food better. And so you're going to absorb more nutrients. So you're actually fixing the situation now, and you're also doing good things for the long term. So the longer you drink it, the more benefits that you'll feel. So when you go to the link that I've provided, there's a little video of me talking about what's in it and how it works and how to use it. So start that today. You will not regret it. And then where people can find me, I have my website is lifemodsolutions.com. All of my social media is at LifeMod Solutions. And I have a YouTube page with a ton of free short videos that talks all about probiotics and a lot more in depth of the things that I touched on today. And so I hope you check me out. And if you have any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. If anyone's interested in scheduling a visit with me, I will give you 50% off my initial consultation. Just mention that you found me with Dr. Holly and we'll make it happen.
Oh, thank you so much. And I want to like second what she just said about everything is in your kitchen to make this herbal concoction and tea. So many of us before we close are always looking for a supplement or what do I have to go get? And we have this training like we have to go to the pharmacy or we have to find a natural health food store, or we have to get a homeopathic when sometimes it's like right in your home. So
Mm-hmm.
I always encourage people like, go ahead and make this elixir and respond back to Dr. Loredana. Let her know like how did it feel? What sort of symptoms were relieved? But there's so many toolkits that you have right in your own kitchen,
Yeah.
and even like I know I keep magnesium chloride. Like if I'm too stressed out or whatnot, or there's so much going on, or I pulled my back or something, working out, like I'll jump in the bathtub and I always have it on hand. That's like so healing. It's healing for the
Mm-hmm.
gut, it's healing for the nervous system, it's healing for stress. And so, it just made me think. So I just wanted to share that is that we have so much in our own homes that we can utilize for healing, but so many are looking outside
Yeah,
that of
food
what's
is
right here.
medicine. Food is medicine, and that's on my mission is teach people how to use food to heal and get off your medications, get off the over the counters. You don't need that stuff. And I've seen it in my office. You can heal with what's in your kitchen. So don't delay, get started.
And I love that saying, your pharmacy, but it's Pharmacy.
F, yep, F for food.
So all right. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Loredana, for what you're doing in this world. Like, from pharmacy to healing gut health, IBS, leaky gut, SIBO, SIFO, all of it. I mean, there's so many gut challenges out there, and so many people need help, and they're almost apprehensive to talk about their belly pain and their bloating. So
Yeah.
if you need support around that, please reach out to her. Please, re-listen to what she talked about, because she gave some different tips and strategies in there that you can utilize during the holiday season that may have like gone by you really fast. So thank you so much for showing up. And those of you that are on, thank you for listening to another session of Health Mastery for Leaders. And remember, they're giving their time to us to help you all heal, and so that you all get to have an amazing season ahead. So blessings to each and every one of you, and enjoy the rest of your day.